voters in the United Kingdom have started to decide whether the UK will remain a part of the European Union. This in a referendum that has divided the nation. Ballot boxes were prepared and voting booths readied at a polling station in Islington, North London, as doors opened for voters across the country at 6 a.m. GMT. A record number of people, almost 46.5 million, are registered to take part in the once-in-a-generation vote. Polls will close at 9 p.m. GMT. The official result is due early tomorrow morning around 6 GMT, but partial results and turnout figures from 382 counting centres will be announced from about 1 a.m. GMT.
I think there are a lot of benefits from being in the European Union, and I think in order to make decisions alongside other countries, we need to be sitting around the same table.
I feel that there's a lack of democracy in the European Union, and the decisions are taken at a level that's too far away from the ordinary members of the Union, so that's why I voted to leave.
Well, campaigning has been fierce in the Brexit poll, and earlier polls showed that the public were evenly split. A Comrade's opinion survey showed the Remain campaign leading by 48% to 42% over Leave, with the remainder still undecided. Meanwhile, another poll by YouGov gave Remain a lead of just 2 points. Voting will end at 9 p.m. GMT later today, and the count will begin as soon as the last votes are cast. The result is expected to be released on Friday morning. Prime Minister David Cameron says he will notify the European Union immediately if Britain votes to leave. Even if the country votes to remain in the EU, many markets will be volatile. Well, let's bring you more on this now from our CCTV correspondents who have been following this very closely. Kate Parkinson joins us now live in Brussels. Kate, no doubt the EU is watching very closely what will take place today, with a keen eye on those results due early tomorrow morning. What are EU officials saying about the referendum, and what is their plan if England decides, or rather the UK decides, to leave the EU?
Absolutely. Brussels is watching incredibly closely. This will shake the Union to its very core if the UK does decide to leave. It will be the first time since the European Union was founded that one of its members votes to leave. So absolutely, this is being watched incredibly closely by officials here in Europe, but they're saying very little, and they're certainly keeping their cards close to their chest regarding what the contingency plan is if the UK does vote to leave. Certainly every day here in Brussels there is a media briefing where a spokesperson from the European Commission speaks directly to journalists. Almost every day journalists are asking, what is the plan? What is the exit plan? And they're really giving very vague answers. They're not saying very much at all. Of course, behind closed doors, they really will be bracing themselves for the impact this would cause. Certainly, they want the UK to remain in the Union, and what we will likely see is a dramatic change in the atmosphere here in Brussels. It's very much a sense of business as usual, calm before the storm at the moment. But by Friday morning, when we know whether the UK is leaving or not, certainly it will be a very different atmosphere. I would imagine that we're either going to see a big sigh of relief from the heads of the European institutions, or we're going to see the Brussels machine kick into action. We're going to see urgent talks taking place. We're going to hear some strong responses, I would imagine. Certainly just yesterday, the president of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, said that out does mean out. So we are getting this very strong message from Brussels that if the UK does vote to leave, then there is no turning back. And so the process of the divorce, so to speak, the EU divorce with Britain will start if the UK does vote to leave, and we'll find out in the early hours of Friday morning.
Well, of course, the other concern that EU member states are, of course, looking at is that if the UK decides to leave, we might see a domino effect, and other countries may also choose to leave the European Union. Tell us more about that.
Well, this is a big fear, certainly here in Brussels, and the concern is, as you say, that it will have a domino effect, because we're obviously hearing a lot of anti-Euro, anti-Brussels rhetoric from the United Kingdom at the moment as part of this campaign, this referendum campaign. But Euroscepticism is not unique to the United Kingdom. We are seeing a rise in anti-Brussels sentiment across the European Union. People are increasingly dissatisfied with how the EU is dealing with the financial crisis, with the refugee crisis as well. And so we are seeing this this conversation happening in other countries, and there is a very real fear here in Brussels that other countries may also start reconsidering their position in the European Union. There is already calls for referendums in other countries, if not a full in-out referendum as we're seeing in the United Kingdom, then at least a renegotiation of membership status, of terms of membership. So this conversation is already happening in other countries, countries like Denmark, the Netherlands. Even in France, we're hearing renewed calls for a so-called Frexit, certainly from the far-right party. And we are hearing this a lot now in Europe. And this is the big concern here in Brussels, that if the UK does vote to leave, this will trigger a domino effect. Even if the UK does vote to stay, the very fact that this conversation is happening is also a concern to the European institutions. The concern is that the very ideals that Europe was founded on, the ideals of unity, solidarity and harmony, are starting to unravel, and that this is potentially the beginning of the end of the European project.
Well, we'll be watching developments in this story very closely. Thanks very much, Kate Parkinson, with the European perspective, live for us there in Brussels.